So I work at a tutoring center, and today, the day finally came when I had to tell some of the kids a little bit of personal background. So at the tutoring center, we like to reward the kids after class with various toys and small snacks. And I didn't even know recently, but there's a new candy bar. So the Twix candy bar now has a left and a right component. See, I didn't know about that because I hadn't even thought about that stuff for 15 years now, right? And my main recollection of Twix is from Seinfeld, actually, when George was trying to get a Twix from a vending machine, but the vending machine ate his money, and then later on he comes back to the shop, it's a car dealership, and finds that the mechanic has stolen his candy bar, and he gets very upset at him and finds his way to interrogate him to get him to confess that he stole the candy bar. And then he did his plan, and it backfired. And George is left standing there going, Twix! Right? That's how I used to behave when I had binge eating problems. Obviously, I wasn't eating Twix when I had the binge eating problems a few years ago. But that's the kind of behavior that I would run into, right? My favorite food would disappear. I'd be going to the grocery store when, the shelves are all empty because there's a pandemic, and I'm looking for my favorite brand of non-alcoholic beer. I used to love, I still do, but now I have more control over my faculties. I used to love Heineken. I'd be going there going, Heineken! And obviously be dragged away into the mental institution, right? And that's how I used to behave. Okay, so the kids were talking about left Twix versus right Twix, and one of the kids asked me to try some and asked my opinion on which side was better. So the time had come to break the news that I have been away from sugar for 15 years now. Now, to give you an idea of how little some of these kids understand, I was drinking a bottle of unsweetened tea, and he's like, well, doesn't that tea have sugar? I said, no, look at the ingredients. And the kids look at zero sugar. This kid was like 10 years old, and he doesn't even know how to read an ingredients label. That's all right. I got to show him a life experience. Now, these kids who are 9, 10, 11 years old, that was the end of the story. Yeah, I mean, one of the kids did poke fun at, one of these days we're going to have you try some because you're missing out, right? You've been in misery for 15 years. But he quickly changed the topic. It didn't go on for more than a couple seconds. Now, these kids are 9, 10, 11 years old. Now, fast forward, if you had college students who are 18, 19, and 20 years old, it becomes much more, it becomes more of an endeavor, right? Why can't you have some? There might even be hazing involved. Now, fast forward another decade, and now it becomes, you're killing yourself, and people have their own opinion on why that's bad for you and all that. Now, so I learned from my experience with explaining to my peers about my eating habits that as children, we intuitively know to accept people for what they eat. Somewhere down the road, most people in their childhood years lose that good sense of humanity, right? For some reason. I cannot explain why. Obviously, the food industry probably has some control over that, but I think we need to be stronger than that, right? And it got me thinking, if as children we're taught to not accept people for what they eat, it's no wonder that as adults we don't accept people for who they love, or among other things, right? So I think it's a very important lesson to impart on your children, to accept people for what they eat or don't eat.